Good afternoon. I want to thank everyone for all the questions that they've been sending in, and I urge you to continue to send in more. You'll also notice I have a bit of stubble growing right now. That's because a friend of mine is in quarantine from my Air Force days, and he challenged us all to a beard growing contest while he is in quarantine. So we're doing this to support him. And I mention that because all of us are affected by this. We probably all know somebody. We are probably all, some of them very close to us, family members that are impacted by COVID either through a quarantine or they've actually caught it. So all of those people are in our prayers. Let me start with one of the things that we get asked frequently is, can you give me an update on COVID-19 here in Illinois? So as of this morning, there were 12,942 cases in Illinois and 307 deaths. There were 2,870 cases in Cook County. There were 61 cases in Orland Park. There's a model from, that is used by the White House and also used by the state of Illinois that I have access to. Actually, most people have access to it. That was, original model was on April 1st when I first saw it. And they updated it on April 5th. But I looked at the model on April 1st and said, what did it predict for April 5th? And what it predicted, first off, was the peak for Illinois was April 20th, with a total of 10,944 beds needed, which meant we have enough beds. And this is their base case. ICU beds, 1,638, and vents, 1,311. They also have low cases and high cases. For April 5th, they projected 274 deaths as their base case, which is exactly what we had. And when you look at this model, it is very good for projecting deaths. If you look at the other states, it was very close. It's very close nationally for projecting deaths. But what it was doing is, if you look at even the lowest projections of hospital bed usage, it had twice as many hospital beds being used in the state of Illinois than were actually used. So that's good news, because it's actually overestimating the amount of ICU cases and overestimating the number of hospital cases that we currently have. Now, they redid the model on April 5th with the new data that they have. So I can just give you some information on what that says. Now it says the peak is April 15th with only a total of 9,255 beds. So what we're doing is working. However, the ICU beds are 1,838 and the vents are 1,575. So you ask the question, why are the ICU beds and the vent projections going up? The reason why, and they actually explained it in the model, is because they've had better data that the US actually keeps people on vents longer and in the ICUs longer because the outcomes are better than they've been in the other countries. So they tend to stay on longer, and so therefore we need more to get through this time. So that's why that's happening. Hopefully they continue to overestimate the amount of cases that we have, and hopefully eventually the death tolls also are overestimated. But the really good news about all of this is that what we're doing is working. It's flattening the curve, it's lowering the peak, and the peak is about a week away. And hopefully we'll start to see it decline after that, and we can start to return to normal. So that's the information that I have on COVID-19 for right now. The next question, and this is just a series of questions, I'll lump them together, is why didn't you close this, or why didn't you close that? Why don't you close it now? So I believe very strongly in our constitutional freedoms, number one. I also believe very strongly in the American people. And for example, before Governor Pritzker had his executive order, the Orland Square Mall stopped walkers from walking. The Orland Square Mall eventually closed itself, and this was before Governor Pritzker closed it. Some stores closed themselves. Restaurants were already allowing only half as many people to eat in their restaurant to space people out. Marcus Theaters was selling only half as many tickets and were spacing people out. In fact, I went to a movie just a few days before the order, and people were extremely spaced out in there. People were keeping a social distance. We were doing that all on our own without the heavy hand of government. Now, since Governor Pritzker's orders, I've been asked to do things like arrest kids for playing basketball. I've had some demands to close tennis courts and basketball courts. I will not be doing those things. The playgrounds are closed, the parks remain open. We do need to get out. We need to get out in the fresh air. That's been spoken about ad nauseum. It's really important that you keep social distance when you're out there, and everything that I've observed from the people of Orland Park is that they've been following the rules. I've been in the forest preserves, I've seen people walking, a lot of people walking, but they're keeping a safe distance between them. And all of what you're doing is working. So I really believe in the American people. I believe that we have tremendous capacity for good and to do the right thing. And from what I've observed in Orland Park is that people are doing the right thing. If, of course, we see a group of too many people together, our police officers will, ask them politely to disperse. And to my knowledge, we haven't had any of that. I know they've had some of that in the city, and Mayor Lightfoot actually pointed out this last Sunday that for the most part they have also been very cooperative when the police have asked them to disperse. So again, I think the people of Orland Park, the people of Illinois, and the people of the United States have a tremendous capacity to do the right thing, and we will continue to do so. Another question that I get, or series of questions, is why isn't Orland Park doing X for businesses or Y for residents? And I guess I'll attack this question in a couple of ways. Because first, we are doing a lot. But I'd like to tell you a little bit about the philosophy that is shared by 6 of the 7 of us that are on the board. First, we need to be good stewards of our tax dollars. And with that, what are we trying to do? With our employee base, we're keeping them working. Well, the state has sent a lot of people, most of their people home. The county has sent most of their people home. We've kept our people working and doing critical jobs because we can continue to fix our roads and do those things. That helps keep our contractors working. But also, you're paying the salaries for our employees, and because you're paying the salaries with your hard-earned tax dollars, you need to see a return for that. And there's plenty of essential services that we can provide during this time. In fact, some of our non-essential service providers, we thought about a plan to help bring them back to help us with our essential services. So at this point, the overwhelming majority of employees in Orland Park are working. So that's very important for us. Additionally, there needs to be a good return or a good result for anything that we do. The federal government is giving a massive stimulus. Just in Orland Park alone, the $1,200 per person or $2,400 for a family or for a couple that's making less than $150,000 plus $500 extra per child is well over $36 million being given out to the residents of Orland Park. Orland Park can't match that or touch that. Anything that we would do would not have an impact. Additionally, the federal government is offering $10,000 loans to all of our businesses. We have about 3,000 businesses. That's $30 million. Between those two programs, that's $56 billion. That's more than our annual budget. There's no way that we can match that or come close to it. Anything that we do will not have a result. Giving a family, for example, $80 or $100 of their own money, by the way, because they'd have to pay it back, doesn't really have much of a positive impact on anyone. And certainly will have a negative impact on the village long term because it strips us of our resources. We don't know how long this will last, and we also don't know what the village is going to get from the state of Illinois or Cook County. The federal government wisely sent the money that they're sending directly to the states and the counties. They did not go to municipalities. There's no way that the federal government could manage that. Although Illinois municipalities pushed for them to give it directly to us because we were afraid that once it goes to the state, it will disappear and it will never end up in our pockets. We certainly are afraid of that as well. So we have to assume at this point that we're going to be on our own. In fact, the state just told me yesterday via email that they won't be sending us our payments for April until some indefinite time in the future. So we're already seeing that we're not getting the money back from the state that we're supposed to get. So we have to assume that we're on our own. So for those reasons, we need to be very conservative with our resources going forward. Again, we must assume that we're on our own. And at the end of the day, we are doing a lot for our businesses and residents. It's just some of these things you may not be fully aware of and you may not realize. So I'm going to go through a big list here of all the things that we're doing and kind of explain a little bit on some of those why we're doing it. So to start with, these ideas have come from our businesses, from our residents, from our trustees, from our Economic Development Advisory Board members, and again, all of you in the public. So some of the things that we're doing some paid advertising to support our current businesses that are open and encouraging people to support them. We're also doing regular social media posts to remind people to support our businesses and restaurants. We have a broader reach than most of these individual restaurants do and most of these individual businesses, so us doing this at not a huge cost really helps them get the word out. We're also promoting the Orland Park Chamber and their efforts, and that helps Tinley Park and Orland Park businesses. Additionally, what we did for businesses is we put together a letter and a package that explained the CARES Act for businesses, because it can be complicated and confusing. We sent that to all 1,200 of the businesses that we have in our contact list. We know we have over double that number of businesses, but many of those don't require to be licensed with the village, so we don't know exactly where they're at. But so we also put that on the website so that any of those businesses can reach it. In fact, any business in the whole region, in the whole country, can get to those resources if they so choose to on our website. I've been lobbying the governor's office pretty heavily to get other businesses open, and I'll tell you why I've been doing that. Is that if you look at the essential businesses, grocery stores, Costco, hardware stores like Home Depot, some of those stores are seeing upwards of 3,000 people a day go through those stores, and they're doing a great job of keeping social distancing. But what we're doing is we're essentially giving a competitive advantage to massive conglomerate stores that carry multiple things, like Target. For example, if you want to go get a pair of shoes, you have to go to Target right now. You can't go to a shoe store. So in my mind, we'd be a little bit better off asking people to stay home, only shopping when they have to, but spacing this out into some other stores. And eventually we do have to reopen. So maybe some of these stores, maybe not all stores, but some of these stores we could look to open now. Additionally, there are other outdoor activities that potentially we could open as well that that are social distanced, are safe. The more that we can get our economy going, the better our recovery will be. Of course, we have to keep in mind that we have to continue to be safe and we have to continue to maintain a social distance, but I really think that people will do that if we start loosening the reins just a little bit. So we'll continue to work with the governor on that. One thing that came up this weekend was that a lot of our medical offices can't get N95 masks because they normally don't carry those masks in their offices because they don't need them. And they can't get their hands on them, but now they need them in order to continue to provide medical services to their clientele. So that could be someone with a pediatric problem, a podiatry problem, orthopedic. It could be any of those things that need care, and these medical offices are having a tough time staying open because of that. So we realized that the Illinois Department of Health and of Public Health and Cook County Public Health aren't really responding to them, and the issue is that to buy these masks now, they're available, but you have to buy them in huge quantities, which our small businesses like these medical offices can't afford, and they certainly don't need those quantities. So what we've put together is we put a program together where we are ordering the masks and then making them available for all of those businesses to contact us, and all we ask for in return is a donation that covers the costs of us purchasing the masks. So rather than trying to go through all the red tape of the federal government and the state government and the county government, where we won't get a lot of help, we're getting them help directly. It's going to take us a few days. I believe we're going to see our first shipment get in on Friday, but we will be able to help our local medical businesses stay open and also provide care to all of our residents. We have additionally implemented a program seeking volunteers to help small businesses apply for these loans with the CARES Act. And this is a plug for volunteers. Anyone who knows how to do this, if you could donate your time, you could contact my assistant, Jennifer Peterson, at jpeterson@orlandpark.org, and let her know that you're a willing volunteer, and let her know when you would be available, times and dates and days, so that we can get that information to businesses that are in need. Because what is happening is some of the very small businesses don't really understand how to apply for these loans, and any individuals that do can help them apply for these loans, because these loans are forgivable. $10,000 payroll loan that's forgivable, also up to $10 million loans that are forgivable, and then a $2 million disaster loan. So there's 3 different loan programs that can be applied for, and sometimes small businesses don't know how to do that. So we're providing that resource for that. Lastly, we actually held a special meeting here on a Saturday to do a couple of things for businesses. We approved making payments right away instead of giving the authority to George and myself to make payments right away rather than waiting 15 to 30 days for those payments, because contractors have a liquidity problem. and they have a difficult time paying their bills. We wanted to make sure they were going to get paid anyways, rather than waiting 2 weeks or a month to get those bills. Let's pay right away. We asked the state to do the same. We asked the county to do the same. They have not done that. In fact, the state has told us they're going to delay the payments even more, which is certainly not helping the village's liquidity or the businesses' liquidity, but that's not surprising. So we're doing what we can do on this end to ensure that. Additionally, what we did is we increased our line of credit so that we could do that, so that we don't get into a cash flow problem. So we took out a $10 million line of credit that if we need it, we can draw on it to make sure that we can make the payments and keep government functioning. Now, many of you at this point are going, well, that's great. You've done all this stuff for businesses. What are you doing for residents? So we're doing a lot of stuff for residents. First, remember that helping our businesses helps our residents. The reason that we can offer all the services that we do and the reason we have the great community that we have is because of our business base. So we have to protect that going forward, so that's very important. Second, as I mentioned, we are keeping our employees working. This is important because while the state and the county sent their people home, we're keeping our people working, which means they're still getting the things done, they're getting the parks cleaned, they're doing everything that makes Orland Park a great place to live. So that's all a benefit to the residents as well. Also, other things that we're doing. The day after my first briefing on COVID-19, we called a meeting for all of the local elected bodies, the schools, the fire protection districts, the townships, everything that we touch around here. We had a meeting the next day to give them an update on what was going on, because obviously this broke very fast, and to give them a heads up that this was happening. This was important so that the schools could start preparing for any changes that they might have, and the fire district could start planning with our police department, and we could implement our disaster plans. We continue to coordinate with our federal, county, and state governments throughout this crisis to ensure that everything that we do is following the rules that they want set and also keep our residents safe. We've waived late fees and discontinued any shutoffs, so any of that has stopped. We've also implemented that if anyone is having a problem with their water bill or a bill that they have for the village, to please contact us and we'll work with you to come up with alternative arrangements, because we realize that some people are having a hard time right now. We did immediately upon all of this information enact our disaster planning and started coordinating with the Fire Protection District and Cook County Department of Public Health. And this includes, if we ever need to do this, a pharmaceutical distribution plan if that ever comes to pass in the future. We created a website as a single point of information for residents and businesses alike to get information on this, including links to the CDC and the WHO. We've regularly created and disseminated videos like this to keep you informed of what's going on. Those have included me, the fire chief, the police chief, as well as some infectious disease specialists at Payless Health. As you're aware, we've sent out code red emails as well as code red phone calls to keep people informed of what's going on. We have continued to lobby the state and the county to ensure that we stay informed and that our residents have all the resources that they need. With all of this, we have remained extremely transparent, and as key information becomes available, we'll continue to share it. We're also working on a long-term plan for, as this event could last a long time, but there is going to be a recovery. Now, we're not going to share that at this time because we don't know how long this is going to last, if it's going to change, and then also we don't want to give a bunch of information out that may change in the future. It's important that the village doesn't throw away our resources on programs today that have little impact. We need to make sure that whatever programs we do will have a positive impact. I want to thank the trustees for the several trustees for all their ideas. Some of those ideas, including ones I've thrown out there, have not been good ones because we're just throwing things on a whiteboard and seeing what sticks, but then out of that, some good ideas come out of that. So we've had good ideas given to us, bad ideas given to us. We welcome all ideas, and we try and find the ones that we think will have the best return on the resource and really help Orland Park recover in the long run. The federal government continues to provide relief through the county and the state, and as I mentioned, we're not sure if we'll see that money in the future. So we are prepared here in Orland Park, and we are preparing to go this alone if we need to going forward, and I strongly believe that Orland Park's in a very good position to come out of this in a positive way. I think nothing speaks to that more than what happened last night. We actually approved a an incentive plan that we're going to send to Cook County for property tax incentives for REI Co-op to come in and go into the Staples. For those of you who are familiar with REI, that's a very coveted retailer that wants to be here, and it's going to be, actually I think it's their second spot in Illinois outside of Chicago. So they're coming here. We also approved a incentive last night for the Cook County property tax for a business that's going into the Carson's Home Goods and filling that. So that's also very important. And if anyone knows about the sports memorabilia shop that's probably been empty at least 5 or 6 years, Yasani Jewelers, we approved that last night as well. All of these things are you speak volumes to the fact that Orland Park is still the place to be. It's still a good place to be. It's a good place for investment. We have had 1 or 2 projects that have been put on hold because of this, but most of the projects are still ongoing, and you're going to see that through the Planning Commission and through what comes to the board. Now, how long this lasts could have an impact on that. We don't know where it's going to go, but Orland Park is in a very good position. In closing, I want to remind everyone that this disease is impacting everyone in the world negatively. Every business, big and small, every person, rich and poor, every government is affected by this, and everyone's affected negatively by this. There will be people, there will be businesses, there will be governments that will use this as an excuse for the failings that they have going forward in the future. Orland Park won't be one of those. I hope you won't be one of those. I believe that the people who use this as who see this as an opportunity, it's time for some change, but that we can actually come out of this stronger in the end. I believe those that have that positive outlook, like Orland Park will be stronger in the long run. That's what Orland Park's going to do. With that, please continue to follow the social distancing. Please continue to follow the hygiene that's been asked of you. All of that is making a huge difference. The reason why the caseloads are going down, the reason why they're lower, the reason why we're looking like we may come out of this in the next few weeks to a month is because you're doing all that. If you stop, then this gets bad again. So continue to do that. Even when things get opened back up, and they will, when things start opening back up, please, please, please continue to use common sense, stay socially distanced, use good hygiene so that those things don't close back down again, because that's always a possibility. So please continue to follow those. You've been doing a great job. The people of Orland Park have been doing a great job. I've been out to the parks myself. Everyone's doing a great job with all of that. Please continue to do so, and we will come out of this soon. Thank you very much. Good afternoon.